What's up? I'm Adrian Patrick.
I'm Ryan Patrick.
We are Otherwise, and you are watching Heavy New York.
Rock and roll, baby.
Heavy New York!
What's up, everybody? It's Alex from Heavy New York. We are at this awesome hotel in Brooklyn, whose name I actually really can't pronounce, but we are here with the brothers of Otherwise. Thank you guys so much for your time.
What's up, New York?
How you doing, dude?
Doing awesome. So the newest record is Defy. Do you just want to give like a brief rundown on how the making of this record was, the recording, mixing, all that fun
absolutely.
stuff?
This album, this outing, we definitely wanted to kind of do things our own way, and on the last couple albums, we had a lot of input from outside sources on how we should sound and how we should look and how we should act and, all that kind of a thing. And on this record, we just kind of stopped giving a fuck. And we just did it the way we wanted to do it. And so the album is, the title is self-explanatory. We wanted to defy the odds, defy the system, defy the limitations, defy the haters, defy our own insecurities. And it's when people listen to the record, you'll get where it's coming from.
Yeah. So do you really consider this just picking up where you left off after Sleeping Lions, or do you think that this record is like a new start for Otherwise in a way?
It's definitely a new start. It's a chance for us to showcase a part of the band that we've never had the chance to showcase. So it's always been inside of us, this sound and this kind of a release. It just so happens that we finally are at a point in our careers where it's on the table. We got it through. Our new label approved it. We're touring. We're playing the songs. Crowds are reacting.
Yeah.
So, we're not doing anything differently than we've done with other albums as far as releasing it to the fans and going and playing the hell out of it across the country. But it's just that the sound is definitely a departure from what you're used to, and
the attitude is fresh too. It's a fresh attitude, fresh outlook on the subject matter that we're dealing with, a fresh outlook on the industry itself. The hurdles and obstacles that get placed in front of artists either by themselves, as we've done, or by outside factors, and we just want to smash through all those barriers.
Yeah.
Was it a preconceived idea on how you wanted this record to sound, like we wanted to incorporate these elements in here, or was there like a lot of improvising involved in the record?
Well, there was a certain sound we wanted, and that's what we were really looking forward to working with Matt Good, the producer, because we knew, listening to some of his prior projects, that he could essentially, create these sounds that we've always heard in our heads but never necessarily known how to get out. And then when we got in the studio with him, he took it to a whole nother level. We were like, hey, we wanted to kind of sound something like this. And he's like, okay, hold on. And then he goes in and he wizards up some stuff on the computer. And we're like, oh, wow, okay. Yeah, that right there. So
yeah, we were definitely on the same wavelength with Matt. I mean, there was many occasions in the studio where it was like, dude, are you in my head right now? Like, how did you? That's exactly the sound I was wanting to hear, And it's funny. We just ran into a friend of ours who's on tour with Nonpoint right now. Our buddy Justin Perez. We ran into him at the gym randomly in Cincinnati last week. And he was like, dude, this new record, man. He's like, I love it. It sounds like all those demos that you guys played me. Because he was part of our crew. He's always part of the crew.
We always play him the B-sides or the songs that didn't make it, or like our passion project songs. And so that's what he was saying. He's like, man, this sounds like all those songs that I got to hear on the inside, but never actually made it through to like the label and the recordings and what we're supposed to sound like.
Yeah.
Very interesting. One thing I've always admired in a way about Otherwise is really like your songs have many different vibes and emotion. Like I brought up True Love Never Dies before we started rolling. I mean, to have a song like I Don't Apologize, a song like Die For You, and then a song like Crimson, and you have all these songs that have many different vibes. It's fair to say that you guys always feel many different emotions and many different atmospheres when you're writing music, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's the point. Again, that the human condition is not always at one gear or one speed. You're not always angry and wanting to scream your head off. You're not always sad and depressed over heartbreak. You're not always happy, So the entire, gamut of human emotions is what we're trying to capture. And I'm glad you picked up on that, Alex, because I think some of those songs that you mentioned, they didn't get really the light of day that maybe we would have liked them to have gotten, so people could see that other side and know that we're not just like a butt rock band. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of people, when I first saw you on the Lacuna Coil tour in 2012, like that, like, you know, a lot of people have heard Soldiers before, because I remember Octane was playing that like on repeat, and then like when people,
if it wasn't for Octane, man, we wouldn't be sitting here with you right now. So
exactly. Huge shout out to everybody over there. But what I find unique is, you know, a lot of people heard Soldiers. Some people like thought you guys were going to be like power metal in a way, and then like you opened up with Die For You at that show, and like, oh wow, this band actually brings in a lot of elements.
Yeah. I mean, you look at the band name itself, you know, it literally means other than supposed. And it's been like such a reoccurring theme, more so than I think we expected it to be, that, you know, we're here defying, with this new record too, you know, we defy the expectations, and we defy, you know, the reputation or what you think we are. You know?
Defy the past, you know?
Yeah, we're definitely, we've always strived to be more than, you know, meets the eye.
Now, one question I have specifically for you is, do you need to hear music in order to come up with lyrics, or do you sometimes have a concept or even lyrics in mind, and maybe that can help determine the music itself?
A lot of times we have, you know, I'll have a poem or an idea or a phrase, you know, and we'll take that and then we'll put the music to it. But yeah, it's, you know, we definitely have been delving more into writing lyric content and subject matter, and then putting the music around it, which is what we did a lot. Like, for example, on the new album, the album closer is called "The Good Fight," and that's a hashtag that we've used. It's something that our father would always tell us, you know, go out there and fight the good fight, my sons, you know, and so we took that concept and turned it into a song, you know, and it's been there. It's been a part of our mantra and a part of our ethos for, I mean, since we were kids. And that's a great example of doing just what you said. We took the concept and made the song, built the song around the idea.
Yeah. And being a guitar player, because I've always admired like your guitar soloing, I feel like your guitar work conveys just as much emotion. Like in the, you know, I've hummed the "I Don't Apologize" scale that you're always playing all the time. Yeah. Do you find it easier to come up with riffs or solos when you're with the entirety of the band and you have like rhythm laid down first, or do you kind of I've always thought isolation's like the best fuel for any form of art. Do you find it easier to maybe come up with stuff when you're like alone?
It's it's a little bit of both. I definitely like to have like a strong you know, palette to work with. So if there is an idea already, you know, if there's a bass line or a groove, you know, that will give me so much more to work with. But then a lot of the times I'll come up with one guitar part, then I'll come up with a second guitar part, and then I'll come up with a third guitar part to emulate different parts. Really, it just depends on the day, you know?
Yeah. Do you have like a music theory element, like I have to work off of this scale and this mode?
Yeah, you know, I went to a performing arts high school. I learned a lot of it, but, you know, I was too busy chasing girls for it to stick. So it's like I have this like subconscious understanding of music theory, but you'll never catch me like being a theory nerd when it comes to like writing our songs. It's all about feel.
Yeah.
So it's not like the movie Whiplash music school.
Yeah.
Right?
No,
I knew some teachers like that, you know. I definitely did know some teachers, but thankfully my guitar instructor was just a Yoda for the six strings.
When that movie first came out, every time I heard a drum line check, I heard somebody in the audience scream, "Not my fucking tempo."
Dude, in our experience, honestly, and our process, the theory and the math and the rigidness of the science has actually been a hindrance a lot of times. You know, there's been a lot of our past bandmates and producers and songwriters that we've worked with where we're doing something that sounds good and feels cool, but in their mathematical head it shouldn't be right. And we've had these arguments, these creative arguments, like, well, dude, it doesn't matter if that's not right. It's awesome. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. I interviewed Tardia, and you know, kind of an apples and oranges scenario, but like she's classically trained, like up and down, like knows all classical music, and she said that like to her classical peers to bring that element into metal when she was doing Nightwish was like absurd to them. But she said if she was so dictated on her classical training, like it. You know, you wouldn't be able to experiment. It
can put you in a box because you're like, well, this flies in the face of the theory that I've that's ingrained in me, you know. But that's what rock and roll is supposed to do. Rock and roll is supposed to, you know, break down barriers, like we said earlier.
Yeah, don't be ashamed of playing two chord songs.
Yeah,
two chord songs.
It worked for the Ramones.
Yeah. Right, there you go. Green Day, it works for Green Day, right?
Now, kind of going back to the meaning of the music, because I thought you really answered the question very well, but can the music also be open to interpretation, or do you try to maybe engage the listener into what you're singing about and maybe get them to see things from your point of view?
We've, like, for me personally, as like the main lyrical writer, the main lyricist, I prefer to leave it as universal as possible and open to whoever's, you know what I mean? For example, the song Soldiers, which was, you know, our breakout song, you know, a lot of people thought that song was Pearl War, you know, and we want to go bomb everybody, but that song was written about my brother. My brother and I were thinking about giving up music, and it was our anthem to ourselves to keep going.
Soldier on.
But then we've had people who said, "Dude, I listened to that song in chemo. You know, it helped me get through my chemotherapy." Like, you know, so what we're going for with the lyrics and the subject matter has to be universal, because if you write a good song, you want as many people in the world to hear it as possible.
It's a bit more on Defy though. We've had that that theme a lot in prior, but on Defy, you know, there's some really specific points we bring up with, you know.
Yeah, I thought it was a little more literal in a way.
Yeah, just straight to the point. You know, we have songs about, like, you know, society being dumbed down, and to support that, we in essence dumb down the lyrics to specifically say, you know, like, hey, how's that coffee taste and how's your credit score looking? You know, to really get across the points of, like, sometimes you need to be, like, really straight to the point when there's a problem and there's a concern with society that needs to be elaborated on, like, again and again, so people can kind of hopefully open their eyes to it.
Yeah.
You know?
I've noticed that the lyrics, and I mean it as kind of like a compliment, it seemed like, you know, you mentioned kind of like dumbing down certain things. I would say that that's kind of like, in a way, mocking the stupid elements that we do see in society. So so even the people who may not like it could be like, oh wow, he's talking about me.
Yeah, we deliberately took a very tongue-in-cheek approach to the lyrical content of this record, especially. You know, we just wanted to simplify it to make it as easily digestible to people, because, you know, in today's social media society, attention spans are so much shorter. So it's like, if you're going to get somebody to think about something, you got to do it in 15 seconds or less, you know, because if they start thinking about it too much, then they're not having fun anymore, and, you know, then it's in one ear and out the other.
And it was fun, and like you said, it was fun to write this way. You know, like our single "Lifted" right now, which is thankfully climbing the charts, which is really exciting. You know, the song is about being that golden god and being that rock and roll star, but then when you watch the music video, you see how lighthearted we make it. You know, we're almost making it a joke in essence.
Yeah.
I think the way I was describing the album, do you follow the Hard Times, that satire website? It's the funniest.
No, I haven't.
Yeah, ever heard of it?
No, I'll have to look it up.
It's like straight up satire, but they write about it like a news article. But like,
it's called what?
The Hard Times.
The Hard Times.
Yeah, and they basically like come up with like the funniest like satire jokes. Like, man claims that this music scene died when he stopped going to shows, and like it's pure satire. But we've all met that 1,000 times. That was the best way I could describe it. Like, I almost felt like the album had like a satire element.
You nailed it on the head, man. Yeah,
we never looked at it that way, but that really is a big element of the album.
It's like satirical social commentary is what a lot of the subject matter is, lyrically speaking, on this new record, and we're really, really proud of it. You know, like, one of our friends, a close buddy of ours, is like, man, they took you guys took the muzzle off finally, you know, and it's like, yeah, man, you know, like I said earlier, we stopped giving a fuck about what labels and management and agents and the industry and everybody had to say about how we should be, you know. So
I'd imagine though, and, you know, not to like contradict like what you're saying, but I'd imagine that, you know, sometimes outside influence, you know, you're looking at the world around you, which obviously influenced the music of the record. I'd imagine sometimes, you mentioned working with Matt Good, like outside inspiration does help sometimes as well.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, he was, I mean, there was a handful of times where he's like, yeah, let's not do that, you know, or like, oh, I got a better idea. And most of the time, you know, him having the producer's mindset and outside perspective, you know, his ideas were like, yeah, okay, that is a better idea. Sometimes we're like, no, gotta stick to it, you gotta keep it. But it was a good, that's what makes, you know, a great record, and a great producer is, you know, the balance of like, hey, keep the band's integrity for themselves, but also like add to it.
Yeah, you don't want. I feel like it's not good to be dictated, but sometimes you also don't want to be so free to the point where you're like directionless or something.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And Matt Good was an integral part of this record. I mean, we came in with, we had dozens of demos, and we used about half of the album Defy. It was built around the demos that we brought in, and the other half was written with him in the studio.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it was a very synergistic relationship and process working with him, and we hope to go back to him on the next one.
Of course. Now, as somebody who has seen you live countless times before, I always thought it's completely different of an experience seeing you live versus listening to the album. I mean, you execute the material great, but with your essence of crowd interaction and the dialogue brought in between songs and all that. Like for you, is there maybe a similar energy that you put into your live presence as you do when you are in songwriting mode, or is it a completely separate mind frame altogether?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, we try to, anything that we do in the studio when we're writing, we want to be able to also pull that off live. Yes, we do use backing tracks. I mean, in this day and age, you have to.
It's another instrument at this point.
Yeah, it's the Ghost Man on third, or is it Ghost Man on second? I can't remember.
I mean, it's so common now. I mean, Slipknot always had their backing track and Sid as like a member. So.
Right. And so for us, we do want it to be organic, but we want, when people listen to the record and then come to the live show, like you're saying, we want it to be that much better. We don't want them to feel like, oh, well, something was missing, and we get that fairly regularly. Someone was just telling me in Syracuse the other night, he's like, dude, I love the album, but seeing you guys do it live was even better, and that's a compliment of the highest order right there.
Yeah, that's a really interesting question, because we write the music. It has its certain tonalities, but we get on stage like we're going to battle, so it's like we never write so aggressively, but then when it's time to play, it comes out very aggressive, because we're up there like ripping our hearts out.
Absolutely, and I could definitely tell on stage.
Yeah.
Especially at the Red 10-year show that you did in 2017.
Yeah, what was that? What was it? The Bowery Ballroom?
The Highline Ballroom.
Highline Ballroom.
Rest in peace to that place.
It closed?
But they said they're working on a new location.
I mean, that makes sense. That load in, load out was treacherous for bands. That doesn't make sense.
Stairs I think are the greatest enemies.
Yeah.
It was Highline, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, on the Highline walk.
Yep.
Yeah, that was a really cool. That was a cool room.
I went to school a block from that place.
Really?
You lucky dog. That's a cool area, man.
Yeah, it was so convenient just being able to leave class, watch the band set, come back to finish taking notes, go watch the next band set.
That's awesome.
Yep. And I have two more questions for you guys.
Yeah.
I love asking this question because it's always the hardest question for every band to answer, and I want you both to answer.
You already asked a pretty loaded one. Man.
How do you know when a song is done? You first.
I think I'm more on the critical end of it, and I don't ever think a song's done. It really depends. Most of the time, it's like, man, I could probably add one more guitar part, or we could add one more element here, or we could take one thing out, or that word could be said differently. Or, I'm usually very, very critical, but I've growing in the industry and growing in the songwriting process. It's just like, all right, just let it live, let it be. There's a lot of ideas that won't make or break a song, and it is just your opinion, and you have to know to just kind of hold your cards and be cool.
Interesting.
In my wheelhouse, they're never done. Kind of touching on what my brother just said. I had this chat with one of our managers a couple weeks ago. He was a former artist, and it's every time you go back and listen to a song, you're always analyzing it. You know what I mean? Going all the way back to our first album up to now, up to Defy, I'm still going. Exactly what my brother said. Man, I could have said that different. We could have put this hook right here. There could have been, this little percussive thing could have happened. It's so. I guess for me personally, they're never done.
Okay. And it even goes with it, you would think okay, if you have a number one song, you'll be like, okay, no, that song's perfect. But there's things on Soldiers that I wouldn't mind changing or adding to, so it really just depends, it's very hard to say they're ever done.
Yeah, but there you go. Yeah. And the final question I wanted to ask you is when are you going to play Shadows or Necropolis again?
This guy over here, he's going way back, man, doing his homework.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Dude, I mean, like I said before we started filming,
That wasn't the real last question. but-
right. I would love to go back and revisit those songs, especially Necropolis. And I think if we got somebody like Matt Good or of equal caliber to put their touch on the production side of things, those songs could become monsters themselves.
Yeah, I mean, Shadows was a party song. And Colorless, too. That song.
Colorblind.
Colorblind,
Yeah. Wow, man, you're going way back, way back. Wow.
I'm a deep cut guy. I'm notorious for that. Like, every time I ask, man, are you playing this? I was like, we haven't played that in like 20 years. I don't even know how to play that.
I'm gonna start, dude. That happens to us in our VIP acoustic sessions a lot. People will say they'll shout out some song, and my brother and I'll be like, dude, we haven't played that song in like 2 years. Like, I don't even remember how it goes. Like it really is it's a perishable skill. It's muscle memory. If you don't practice them, you kind of forget your own songs. And yeah, that's a very, very funny point, man.
But the real final question I wanted to ask you is I always admire a band that has a very dedicated fan base. I think that's just like the icing on the cake when it comes to, just enjoying their music. When you mentioned, like, you wrote Soldiers, that was a very personal song for you, but you see how other people took it and made it their own.
Yeah.
And I feel like music is like as much of an extension of you guys as much as it is a way to escape as well. So when you hear on how somebody connects with your music, does that change your perspective on how you look at yourself as an artist?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's definitely uplifting and reassuring and all the positive things. That's like sometimes it's funny. Sometimes when you're on tour, a fan will catch you in a moment when you're just in your own world. Like, man, I'm tired. I'm hungry.
I miss home.
Missing home. Dealing with this. And you're just like in your own little zone, but then you see someone like take the time to come up to you and just like confess their deepest, utmost appreciation. It's like a really great experience to be able to get that every time. It's like, okay, thank you for feeding us again, because the part of me was freaking starving, and now I'm reminded again why we're doing this.
Yeah, it still blows my mind to this day. Every time a fan says, your music saved my life, and I'm like, to me, it's like it's hard to process that, because I start thinking, well, what were they going through? And it's crazy that this silly song that we wrote somehow helped them get through this really dark period of their life, and that is exactly what it keeps us going and reminds us why we do what we do.
Yeah, because I really think that you do have the songs. You do, like, you guys are a rock band, but like you don't, you have like a Motley Crue vibe to you with a song like Vegas Girl. But like then to also make songs, I think like Don't Be Afraid, for example, like that I think was very uplifting. I feel like you have moments that could share joy, but also share pain in a way. At least that's how I was able to describe it.
Human condition, man. The human condition.
Yeah, exactly. So before we go, I want to thank you guys so much for your time today.
Dude, thank you, Alex.
Of course, thank you. Looking forward to Vitus tomorrow.
Yeah, I think it's our first time at that venue.
It's one hell of a venue.
Is it? We've heard good things, man.
Yeah. Backstage at that place is just behind the amplifier.
That's it, right? Okay, that's the backstage area.
We're looking at a punk rock show tomorrow.
Oh yeah, no barrier. You might have some crowd surfers.
All right, bring it on.
Yeah.
We'll see you crowd surfing, huh?
Maybe. I don't know. I just turned 26. I'm getting too old for that.
He's too old. Okay, get out of here.
Just, is there anything else you would like to promote for otherwise in terms of tours after this tour with Blacktop Mojo? This will be uploaded by midnight, so if it hasn't been announced yet.
Okay. Well, we have our hometown show, holiday show back in Las Vegas, Friday, December 20th at the Hard Rock Hotel inside Vinyl. And it's bittersweet because it will be our final show at that venue as it's known as the Hard Rock, because in February it becomes Virgin. So, our cousin Ivan worked there. That was his last place of employment before he left us. And, we grew up over there. We grew up in the Hard Rock Hotel, walking around like dreaming and looking and paying homage to, looking at Brad from Sublime, his handwritten lyrics, like in the display case. And it's Friday, December 20th. If you need to come to Las Vegas, that's a good time to do it.
It's a good time, make your holiday trip. Come spend it with us.
There you go. But what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
Or it gets posted on the internet.
Yeah, very true. That quote was made before social media.
Yeah.
That's when Mark Zuckerberg just said, "Hold my beer."
Watch this.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Alex.
Everybody, we are here with Otherwise. Pick up Defy when supplies officially last forever. This is Alex from Heavy New York. We'll see you next time.
We love you, New York.